Greetings, Judah. DFG Gideon's Flight. How many of you guys have heard of universal income? Universal income. Well, if you haven't heard if you haven't heard of universal income or about universal income, that was a segment, I think, interview that Mark Zuckerberg with Facebook was discussing in an interview around what did he think it would take to solve the climate of the economic climate in regards to AI technology competing with human labor to keep everyone working. Because he was saying, and as it actually is, you can hear, pretty much Eric Schmidt with Google and all of the top tech people already know that AI eventually is going to eliminate the need for human beings, quite frankly. And the question came that was presented to him was, well, how do you see resolution? How does this get resolved? And Mark Zuckerberg came up with, well, we need to have a universal income. And what it would be like is that, people would receive an income, to more or less stay home if their labor wasn't needed. If their labor was needed, then a 4-day work week. But otherwise, they would just stay home, and the state, the government, would just pay them, a living wage so that they can, be provided for as the basic essentials for living, food, housing, transportation, uh, etc. And it was interesting, or what is even more interesting is that this was probably about 3, maybe 4 years ago when this conversation was going on. And at the time, it really seemed a little odd. I remember traveling, the person that I was traveling with at the time, we were in a conversation about it, and it was, we talked long about it because it was, is this possible? Was it possible? Or is it actually going to happen? And my, thoughts on it was that he wouldn't be talking about it if they didn't have some kind of plan or strategy to make it happen. Now, while that might sound good, income that you can sit home and don't have to work, and the state of the government would sponsor that. I mean, conceptually, I guess it sounds okay because obviously, if there's no work for you, you have to eat, right? But there's a backstory to this whole thing. And that's what I want to talk to in regards to the mark of the beast. Because the backstory is that we're already seeing universal income take shape, not only here in America, but pretty much across the entire planet. In America, they're calling it the CARE Act or the Stimulus Act, where they pay people, $600 plus, to stay home because of COVID-19, and the social distancing, and their places of business or places of employment was shut down. And however you might feel about COVID, and some of us have a totally different opinion around COVID and its legitimacy, but we're entitled to our opinion, just like you're entitled to your opinion. I respect your opinion about it. Hopefully you can respect my opinion about it. But the long and the short, COVID, was absolutely the reason that people were forced out of the workplace, forced into their homes, asked to stay in their homes, and then supplemented to be in their homes. Now, why, again, that might sound, like the right thing to do. The backstory is what happens when this becomes the permanent thing to do. What happens when universal income is the law of the land for 90% of the population? What happens if you're on welfare, for example, and you say, I'm not going to take the vaccine, for example, all right? You're saying that I'm not going to take the vaccine. Nobody's going to force me to take the vaccine. And right now, Judah, the stats already say 7 out of 10 of us said we're not going to take that vaccine. Well, guess what, Judah? If you happen to be taking welfare or getting welfare or any kind of stimulus, you know what's going to happen, including EBT food stamps. You're going to receive a nice little letter in the mail. And that letter in the mail is going to read something like this. You must register for the COVID vaccination by such and such a date. Otherwise, all of your government assistance will be discontinued. Yes, that's the letter you can look forward to seeing. Whether it's welfare, whether it's EBT, whether it's stimulus checks, any type of universal income that the government is putting out, you're going to find out there is a little attachment that goes along with it, the little fine print. And that is report to get vaccinated. And again and again. So for you folk who are saying, you know what, I'm not going to do it, then how are you preparing yourself not to do it? Because if you're sitting around and you don't have plans in play to be self-sufficient, you're going to be taking that vaccine. And not only, and I know you're going to take the vaccine. Let me be very clear. Maybe even emboldened here. I know you're going to take the vaccine. You know why? Because our book, Judah, says that many of you guys are going to take that vaccine. The vast majority of you are going to take it. Because if you don't take it, you're not going to be able to sustain yourself or your family. And you're not going to be able to go to work at that particular point in time because there will be no such thing as work where your skill sets are necessary. And just for the record, let's go to the book, which is important. Let's go to Revelations, okay, chapter 13. And I'm going to read right here for you. Uh-oh. If I can, get some light here. Praise Yah. Revelation chapter 13. Bear with me here. And this is what it reads. And he calls it all, both, small and great, rich and poor, free and bond. So whether you're free or incarcerated, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead, and that no man might be able to buy or sell except he had that mark or the name of that beast or the number of the name of that beast. In other words, you can't buy, you can't sell. So in other words, they're going to cut you off. All of your government assistance, all of your stimulus, all of your EBT, all of your welfare assistance, whatever kind of Social Security included, all those things you're going to be held hostage except you take that mark. I know some of you guys say, well, who says that the vaccine is the mark? I don't know. Whatever the mark is universal. The whole world's going to be forced to do it. And it just so happens this vaccine is the only thing on the planet that everybody is being forced to take. At least that's their goal. What else fits this description that's being mandated if it's not the vaccine? Have you even considered that? So there's something about this vaccine that's so paramount, so important, obviously, so you don't get the, the COVID-19 virus that only people seem to be dying of it, the people who go into these hospitals. But, again, that's just my opinion. Maybe you know better. But that being stated, you are not going to be allowed to survive unless you take that mark. And somebody says, so, okay, I'll take the mark. What's the big deal? Well, let me take you over to Revelation chapter 14. This is the big deal. If you take this mark. And it goes on to say, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man that worship the beast or the image or receive the mark in his forehead or in his hand, that same man shall drink the wine of the wrath of Yahweh, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of Yeshua. So in other words, you're going to be condemned to eternal condemnation, to damnation, And according to here, you're going to be, let me read that last part again. The same shall drink the wrath of the wine of Yah, which is poured out without mixture. So in other words, pure wrath, in the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone forever. That's why it's a big deal not to take it, or a big deal if you do. If you believe the word of Yah is true, if you believe that the scripture is stated as a fact, Yah teaches to let the Yah words be true and every man be a lie. So if you believe the book, then That's why you need to understand that if you don't wean yourself off, or you don't resist the temptation to be seduced into falling into one of these traps where the state becomes your parent, so to speak. Your state becomes your primary provider to determine your resources, your ability to get resources. You better be very careful and be very aware. Because remember what Ephesians 6 says. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood. These are demonic, wicked powers, wicked principalities that are set in place in these last days to not only condemn you and to steal your independence, but to wreck your very soul through eternal condemnation, damnation. I hope you'll at least consider what I said. If not, you've been warned. DFG. Bye now.